and welcome back at the FinetLink channel. After we saw the first module of CCNA Introduction to Network, now we are moving forward to Routing, Switching and Wireless Essentials. And in this video, we are getting an overall introduction what we will be studying for this module. The first thing that we will learn at this module will be how to configure devices using security best practice, which means that we will learn the basic configuration. We will configure initial setting on a Cisco switch. We will configure switch ports to meet network requirements. We will configure secure management access on a switch. And we will continue to configure basic settings on a router-to-router between two directly connected networks using the command line. And lastly, we will verify connectivity between two networks that are directly connected to a router. And then we will go with the second topic, where we will explain how layer 2 switches forward data, where we will learn the switching concept, and we will explain how frames are forwarded in a switch network, and we even compare a collision domain to a broadcast domain. And then we will implement VLAN and tracking in a switched network, and at the VLANs we will be able to explain the purpose of VLANs in a switched network. We will explain how a switch forward frame based on a VLAN configuration in a multi-switch environment, and then we will configure a switch port to be assigned to a VLAN based on requirements. And the last two topics will be to configure a trunk port on the LAN switch, and we even configure dynamic trunk protocol. And after we will be done with the VLAN, we will be at the Inter-VLAN routing, where we will troubleshoot Inter-VLAN routing on a layer 3 devices. And what we will study here, it will be how to describe options for configuring Inter-VLAN routing. We will configure router on a stick Inter-VLAN routing, and we will even configure Inter-VLAN routing using layer 3 switching, and then we will troubleshoot common Inter-VLAN configuration issues. And since we will be learning about switches and how to configure these switches, what we will see, it will be the spanning tree protocol, which is designed specifically to eliminate layer 2 loops in your network. And the topics for this will be to explain how spanning tree protocol will enable redundancy in a layer 2 network. And what we will see here, it will be about the common problems in a redundant layer 2 switch. We will explain how spanning tree protocol is a simple switch network, and then we will see even the evolution of this protocol. And one of the topics that will be very important about the switches, it will be the Ethernet channel, where with this Ethernet channel, the network can have redundancy, loop prevention, and increased bandwidth. And what we will learn here, it will be the troubleshoot Ethernet channel on switches links. The topics that we will be seeing in this Ethernet channel material will describe Ethernet channel technology. We will configure the Ethernet channel, and after that we will even troubleshoot this Ethernet channel. And since we will be done with switches, what we will go next, it will be at the router. And what we will do at the router, we will be able to, and after we will be done configuring the switches and all the topics about the switches, we will continue to configure routers. In there, we will start to configure the DHCP version 4 and DHCP version 6. When we will configure the DHCP version 4, we will implement this DHCP version 4 to operate across multiple LANs. And for this, we will explain how DHCP version 4 operates in a small to medium-sized business network. We will configure a router as a DHCP version 4 server and as a DHCP version 4 client. And after we will be done with DHCP version 4, we will compare that with DHCP version 6, where we will explain how an IPv6 host can query its IPv6 configuration, and we even will explain the operation of stateless address auto configuration, and then we will explain the operation of DHCP version 6, and we will configure a stateful and stateless DHCP version 6 server. And what we will be seeing next will be, and since we will be configuring routers, what we will study there would be about the first hop redundancy protocol, where we will explain how first hop redundancy protocol provides default gateway services in a redundant network. And for this, we will explain the purpose and operation of first hop redundancy protocol, and we even explain how host standard router protocol will operate. And a topic that is very important when we study the networks, it's about the security concept at this network. And what we will see here, that we will explain how vulnerabilities compromise the LAN security. And depending on that, we will explain how to use endpoint security to mitigate attacks. We will explain how AAA are used to authenticate LAN endpoints and devices. We will identify layer 2 vulnerabilities, and based on that, we will explain how MAC address table attack compromise LAN security, and it is very important to explain how LAN attacks compromise LAN security. And depending on that, we will go and configure switch security to mitigate LAN attacks. Here, we will implement port security to mitigate MAC address table attacks. We will explain how to configure the TTP and native VLAN to mitigate VLAN attacks. We will explain and we will configure DHCP snooping to mitigate DHCP attacks. We will explain how to configure ARP inspection to mitigate ARP attacks, and it is very important even to explain how to configure PortFast and BPDU guard to mitigate spanning tree protocol attacks. And since we are studying in this module about the network, a network that is important to understand how it works and all the concept about will be its wireless LAN. And at the wireless LAN, we will explain how wireless LAN enable network connectivity. The concept that we will learn here will be to describe wireless LAN technology and standards. We will describe the component of wireless LAN infrastructure. We will explain how wireless technology enables wireless LAN operation, and we will explain how a wireless controller uses the control and provision of wireless access point To manage multiple access point, we will describe channel management in wireless LAN, and as all the networks, we will describe threat to wireless LAN, and we will describe wireless LAN security mechanism. And after we will be done with all the concept about wireless LAN, then what is next? It's the implement of a wireless LAN using a wireless router on a wireless controller. And for this, we will configure a wireless LAN to support a remote site. We will configure a wireless LAN controller and a wireless LAN to use the management interface, and depending on that, we will choose the authentication. We will configure a wireless LAN controller, wireless LAN to a VLAN interface as a DHCP server, and then we will use the enterprise authentication. And after we are done with that, what we will do is to troubleshoot common wireless configuration issues. It's important information when we will be studying the module of switching, routing, and wireless essential about routing, which means that here in this module we will see the routing concepts, where we will explain how routers use information in packets to make forwarding decisions. And based on that, we will explain how routers determine the best path. We will explain how routers forward packets to the destination. We will configure basic settings on a router. We will describe the structure of a routing table, and based on that, we will compare static and dynamic routing concepts. And after we are done all with this information, we will configure IPv4 and IPv6 static routes. Here, we will describe the common syntax for a static route. We will configure IPv4 and IPv6 static routes. We will configure IPv4 and IPv6 default static routes, and we will configure a floating static route to provide a backup connection. And lastly, we will configure IPv4 and IPv6 static host routes that direct traffic to a specific host. And every time that we are going through this configuration, we will explain each kind of these static routes and the difference between them. And the last material topic that we will see when we are done with the routing configuration and the static route, we will troubleshoot those static routes and the default route. We will troubleshoot the configuration based on that. Here, we will explain how a router processes packets when a static route is configured, and we will troubleshoot common static and default route configuration issues. And this was all the information that we will see as we are studying the second module of CCNA switching, router, and wireless essential. If you are interested to know all this information and to study with us, do not forget to subscribe at this channel, hit the notification button for the new videos that will be uploaded, and if you like it, share it with your friends. See you to the next session.